As a kid, there were few things that stood out in my school library as much as the scary book series Goosebumps. Now, granted, I wasn't the biggest reader, even back then, I was all about the video games, but I certainly had my favourites. Adventures of Tintin and Goosebumps were chief among them. Now, as a side note, I absolutely adore Tintin, and I want to do a Sidequest Special on it eventually as well. But in the spirit of Halloween, today, we are focused on my experience with the everlasting legacy of Goosebumps. Long before I was collecting video games, collecting Goosebumps books was my obsession, and I owned about 30% of the first series. Goosebumps was created by the author Robert Lawrence Stein, or R.L. Stein, as everyone knows him. R.L. began writing at 9 years old after he found a typewriter up in his attic. He had amassed a respectable amount of writing credits before hitting it big with Goosebumps. His other series included Mostly Ghostly, Rotten School, and Fear Street, to name a couple. Like most of his work, Goosebumps was aimed at a younger audience, such as elementary school kids. The series spanned 62 books for the first series, and these varied from campy to silly to downright disturbing and sometimes traumatic. Now, let's take a brief look over some of the more prominent stories and the ones that I remember the most, starting with The Night of the Living Dummy, featuring a ventriloquist dummy named Slappy that comes alive. Now, Slappy was a breakout star of the series, with him starring in 3 stories and 2 movies. He's essentially the mascot for the entire franchise. Next is The Haunted Mask. Now, this was about a girl who finds a mask in a pawn shop, and when she puts the mask on, it melds itself to the user's skin, and she can't get it off. Now, this scene, and honestly the entire episode in general, was traumatic to watch as a kid, as it fills you with a sense of dread and claustrophobia. Even watching it now, it's still really freaky. Monster Blood. Evan and his friend find a dusty can labelled Monster Blood, but they soon notice something weird about it. It won't stop growing, and anything it touches also grows, including Evan's dog, Trigger. Now, just a quick side note, I've always loved that name for a dog, and often when I play video games and get the chance to name a dog, I call him Trigger. So Monster Blood is unique in that it's the only story that actually has 4 entries, and Monster Blood 4 happens to be the 62nd and therefore final book in the original run. Not only that, but Monster Blood 4 is also part of the unreprinted quadrology. A little more on that later. Say cheese and die. Greg and his friends break into an old warehouse where they find an unusual camera. However, the photographs that Greg takes with it seem to predict danger. Now, I'll always remember this one for the awesome cover art. And honestly, pretty much every book had excellent cover art. Not only that, but the textured Goosebumps logo, when touched, actually feels like Goosebumps. There were also many spin-off series, including the Choose Your Own Adventure game books called Give Yourself Goosebumps and Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Now, speaking of Choose Your Own Adventure books, just for a moment, one of my holy grails of collecting was a book series that I adored growing up with. It's called Choose Your Way. Now, it's incredibly difficult to find any information on these, and I'm just wondering if anyone else remembers this series. I don't know what it is about this particular book series, but it really had an eerie atmosphere that just stuck with me. Anyway, back to Goosebumps. Now, as a kid, you're always trying to prove how brave you are. And if you can watch or read the scariest thing around and not be affected by it, then you can hang out with the coolest kids during recess, with their Goosebumps and Tarzo's collections. Now, I have wonderful memories of my parents and grandparents reading me Goosebumps before bed, and looking back, I think they may have appreciated reading something a little more off kilter than the usual children's books. Now, I mentioned earlier about the unreprinted quadrilogy. What is it? Well, it's 4 of what's considered the rarest Goosebumps out there in the original run. These include Legend of the Lost Legend, Werewolf Skin. Now this one's notable as it actually had a tear-out werewolf mask in it. I Live in Your Basement, and as we mentioned, Monster Blood 4. Although they cost more than the average Goosebumps book, they don't hold a candle to some retro games prices. I should know. Surprisingly, I actually own Legend of the Lost Legend. Cool. Now Goosebumps was incredibly successful, not only in the book medium, but it also had a live-action TV series, board games, video games, and they even made their way into the collectibles market, with the likes of Pogs and cards and such. In fact, I owned a Night of the Living Dummy jigsaw and the Horrorland board game. Now, as I mentioned, there was a live-action TV series that released in 1995. It condensed the 122-ish paged books into 20-minute episodes. I remember the theme song literally giving me chills of anticipation for this week's story. It ran for 4 seasons, with 74 episodes in total, and it encapsulated 43 out of the 62 books. Now, something to note here is that even though there was a Night of the Living Dummy 2 and 3, there was never actually an episode based on the first one. I also recall the creator, R.L. Stine, would personally introduce every episode with the unmistakable moniker,
"Viewers beware, you're in for a scare." Viewers beware, you're in for a scare. Viewers beware, you're in for a scare.
The series complements the books well. Personally, I read the books first. Although Goosebumps was undoubtedly a 90s phenomenon, it has carried on, even to this day, with a new live-action series on Disney+, and even 2 movies starring Jack Black as R.L. Stine. I've yet to check out the second movie, or the new series, but the first movie, released back in 2015, is a wonderful love letter to the franchise. Jack Black plays a younger R.L. Stine, and his Goosebumps books act as portals for his creations to literally jump off the page. The movie features Slappy as the antagonist, and nearly every creature from every book is brought to life in glorious CGI. The acting is fine, and the story was quite gripping. It even featured R.L. himself in a clever cameo appearance.
Hello, Mr. Stein. Hello, Mr. Black.
So, if you grew up with the books, or the show, it's definitely worth a watch. Goosebumps was a formative part of my childhood, and it makes me happy that its legacy still endures to this day. While I've been making this Sidequest special, I've been periodically going back to my parents' house to try and find all my original Goosebumps books, so then I can read them to my son, and he can have the same experiences I did growing up. Thank you for watching and reminiscing with me about Goosebumps. If you like this, please consider subscribing, as it really does help the channel, and it motivates me to make more content like this. I have a playlist called Sidequest Specials, and that has videos much like this that cover specific topics and sometimes games. I also do weekly retrospective reviews on retro games, and I've just recently started doing live streams 2 times a week. Now, if you want a breakdown of what's on my channel, please check out my channel trailer. Thank you again for watching, and have a spooky Halloween season.